I would like to offer my deep sense of gratitude towards the Institute and my teachers. I chose this topic because it is the most relevant in the current context of fragmented global order and the pressure on exchange rates, especially the countries from emerging markets are facing today. So international impossible trinity is actually a fundamental concept in international economics that states that no country can simultaneously achieve three objectives. What are these three objectives? The first is of maintaining stable currency, that is fixed exchange rate. Second is to run your monetary policy based on domestic considerations, that is autonomous monetary policy. And third is free capital movement across borders. Why these three objectives cannot be achieved simultaneously? Because if a particular country has opted for fixed exchange rates and free capital movement, then naturally its interest rates will have to align with the global interest rates. So it cannot set its own interest rates in response to any domestic economic problem. Similarly, if a country opts for autonomous monetary policy and freer capital movement, then it won't be able to maintain stable currency or fixed exchange rate, because the interest rate differential between this country and other countries will trigger capital flows, and depending upon whether the country is attracting capital or losing capital, there will be appreciation or depreciation pressure on the country's currency, and that will make the currency unstable. So no country can simultaneously have these three objectives. Interestingly, this principle was developed in the 1960s by two prominent economists independently, one in Canada and one in Great Britain. Robert Mundell from Canada thought about it, and Marcus Fleming from Great Britain also thought about it, and that's why in economics it's known as the Mundell-Fleming theorem. So, I have already explained to you why this cannot be done. Just to, in my lifetime or in my journey as an economist, I had seen three major crises where actually this impossible trinity had led to a lot of financial sector instability and loss of confidence. The first was, of course, the Mexican peso crisis. After that, the East Asian currency crisis, where those countries were regarded as miracle economies and were doing so well. They were known as Asian tigers. And the third was, Argentinian crisis. All these nations had gone for fixed exchange rate systems and capital account convertibility when and they didn't have autonomous monetary policy. So when their countries developed internal economic problems or their trade balances started deteriorating, their central banks couldn't do much, leading to lot of financial instability, loss of currency value, and loss of confidence. So that's why this principle is very important to understand. So most of the countries in contemporary times have chosen two out of these three objectives, and majority of them have actually today gone for independent monetary policy and freer capital movement. What does that mean? That means they have accepted flexible exchange rate regime. So, and India is also one of them. So they have given preference to economic flexibility over fixed exchange rate. Just to explain to you the current scenario with respect to this, how countries have chosen their monetary policy frameworks, United States has gone for independent monetary policy and free capital movement. So they have allowed for flexible exchange rate adjustment. Hong Kong has chosen fixed exchange rate and free capital movement. So they cannot have independent monetary policy. Their monetary policy always aligns with the monetary policy of US Federal Reserve. China has chosen fixed exchange rate and independent monetary policy. So it doesn't allow freer capital movement. So it always has very strict capital controls. European Union, it's a bloc with the single currency. So they have to have fixed exchange rate and no independent monetary policy by any nation. And they have capital integration. Now, understanding this principle is very important in practical life. It's not a theoretical abstraction, because people working in manufacturing or financial field, they have to navigate currency risks. They have to understand when shock signals coming from external arena will prompt their central banks to come out with aggressive monetary policy measures or capital controls, etc. And then they can take informed investment decisions, optimize asset allocations, etc. So this principle has lot of practical relevance. In India, our monetary policy framework was shaped by Urjit Patel Committee report in January 2014. Until then, Indian Central Bank used to follow multiple target and multiple instruments approach, which actually had led to a lot of confusion about the primary goal of monetary policy, and there used to be a lot of confusion in the minds of market participants. So by recognizing this trilemma, Urjit Patel report recommended giving priority to independent monetary policy with a singular focus on price stability, that is inflation control. But we are a developing country and we are susceptible, vulnerable to lot of supply side shocks coming from the food economy or fuel economy. So to balance price stability with growth considerations, we went for flexible inflation targeting. Rather than accepting a fixed inflation target, we accepted a flexible inflation target. That means we chose as our medium term target 4% inflation rate, and gave a tolerance band of 2%. That means our inflation can fluctuate between 2% to 6%, accommodating for supply shocks, growth considerations, etc. But medium-term focus remains on achieving 4% target. That was very clearly defined. Before this committee report came into existence or operationalized, there was no properly defined anchor of monetary policy. Sometimes people used to give reference to WPI, producer price index, sometimes consumer price index. So headline consumer price index inflation was chosen as the nominal anchor of policy. So it reduced a lot of confusion. But when a country chooses independent monetary policy and allows for freer capital movement, it has to keep its exchange rate flexible, and that can sometimes lead to problems because of the principle of impossible trinity, which we are also currently facing. Besides that, the report also recommended building up of foreign exchange reserves, because in 2013 India was one of the 5 fragile economies with very low reserves of foreign exchange. So that was another very strong recommendation of Urjit Patel Committee. Now we will take the stock of our achievements after we introduce this framework. First of all, if you look at the average annual inflation rate in India, it used to hover in the range of 9.5 to 10.5, in financial years 2013-2014. It has monotonically declined after that, and in this current financial year, in the first 9 months, it is just 1.7%. This is despite the fact that in the interim period, we faced COVID pandemic. There was also a Russia-Ukraine war, which created a lot of supply chain problems. Secondly, what matters for businesses is not just the inflation level, but variability of inflation. So volatility in inflation also has come down significantly. If you look at the quarterly inflation rates and the volatility in that, from March 12 quarter to say March 18 quarter, the volatility was 2.6. It has come down now to 1.5. So that is another very big achievement. If you look at inflationary expectations, whether short term or long term, 1 year ahead or long term, Both of them have eased post the inflation targeting framework. If you make the pre and post comparison, they have substantially come down, both the long term as well as short term this thing. Policy transmission has improved, especially from the shorter end of the yield curve, because people in from the BFSI field here know that lot of now loan rates have external benchmark and they are directly linked to policy rates. So automatically the transmission happens. But the biggest achievement is that our foreign exchange reserves. You know, when the taper tantrums were happening in 2013, our foreign exchange reserves were not even US dollar 300 billion. They were 292 or something. In March 2025, they have risen to the level of 670 billion. I was looking at Reserve Bank of yesterday's data. As of today, they are above 700 US dollar billion. Now, this is a remarkable achievement in a phase when a Reserve Bank of India is continuously trying to stabilize the currency because of increased volatility in the short term. Now, how we are facing this trilemma in the present phase. You see, in the last 18 to 20 months, because of uncertain global outlook and prohibitive rates of tariff, there is lot of pressure on Indian exchange rate. And India and Brazil are now only two countries which are facing maximum tariff rates, and to India, there is also a threat that if it doesn't stop buying oil from Russia, the tariff rate can increase to 500%. So naturally, rupee dollar exchange rate has experienced significant depreciation throughout the calendar year 2025. It has frequently hit the bottom record low levels, and it has made rupee Asia's worst performing currency. In the year 2025, our currency depreciated by more than 5%, when in earlier years it was nearly stable. In 2023, the depreciation was less than 0.4%, and 1 year 5%, it is huge. Moreover, India is also suffering from risk of environment. FIIs, foreign institutional investors, have been pulling out money from Indian equity markets. In last year alone, they pulled out US dollar 19 billion from Indian equity markets, and we have received close to zero net foreign direct investment each month for the past 22 months. If I adjust the gross FDI flows with the outbound FDI, that means the amount of capital Indian firms are investing overseas. So if you look at those net figures, then actually the capital staying within India from the foreign investors has become negative. So this reflects the negative perception. But Reserve Bank has been supporting the currency by selling dollars heavily in the spot market and forward markets also, and to reduce the pressure on liquidity, because when RBI sells dollar, it pulls out liquidity from the system. It is also coming out with buy and sell swaps in the forward markets, so that to take care of medium term liquidity needs. So what does that mean? It is it's a two-stage operation whereby it buys dollars now and withdraws rupee liquidity later, so that rupee liquidity remains stable. Now, given this, given the aggressive intervention of RBI and given the pressures on the currency, now there is a re-emergence of the debate whether India should again go back to multiple target and multiple instruments approach in its monetary policy. To that, my answer is no, a big capital no. First of all, our new framework has tremendously improved the credibility of the framework, predictability of the framework, and people are now able to make the expectations more accurately, because now there is a singular focus on price stability. There is no ambiguity around the goal, And effectively, many central banks have today essentially chosen to use multiple instruments to manage the impossible trinity without sacrificing the primary goal of price stability. So despite the heightened external uncertainty, Reserve Bank of India has managed impossible trinity quite well with the help of multiple instruments. So credibility of the framework is very important, because after we went for flexible inflation targeting, actually our sovereign ratings got improved. The perception of foreign portfolio investors about India improved, because they felt that now there is a rule-based framework which is guiding the actions of the central monetary authority. So the whole exercise became more predictable and more transparent. So what is my concluding take? While a move towards multiple goals, especially the goal of financial stability, is increasingly getting popular, abandonment of price stability as the primary nominal anchor is not advisable for India. But in the present phase, a lot of efforts can be put in by other policymakers and we as citizens to support Reserve Bank of India's actions. First of all, the importing firms and for NBFCs or manufacturing firms that are borrowing from overseas, they have to prudently hedge their forex exposures so that there is no excessive pressure on the Reserve Bank of India to intervene in the forex market and stabilize currency all the time. Then there are three most stable components of foreign exchange reserves. One is export earnings, second is foreign direct investment flows, and third is remittances. So we have to make every possible effort to improve the flows from these three components to foreign exchange reserves. For that, we need to make our exports more competitive, more diversified, diversification in favor of European Union, China, West Asia, etc. For foreign direct investors, we have to, make the environment, investment environment more stable. And for NRIs, we have to offer more attractive interest rates. So to conclude, international trinity will be increasingly more complex in today's fragmented global order, but the success of our flexible inflation targeting framework has given us today enough flexibility to pursue other objectives without sacrificing the primary goal of price stability. And we all should be proud of it. Thank you.